What's up, everybody? This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and I'm your host, Sean Dustin. All right, this is number 2 of a doubleheader today. I hope you enjoyed the first one with Kim White. She's an awesome individual, man. I really love Kim. She's definitely somebody who is very selfless and out there just trying to help people be their best selves. So for those of you who are listening, I'm piping this into Clubhouse in my room. Got Myco James, who's here with me. We're going to be talking about mushrooms, all of the different types of mushrooms that are out there, not only just psilocybin, but all the different varieties that they have out there and all the benefits. And then a little bit about Senate Bill 519, which is really important for the healing community and, anybody out there that's, suffered through traumas, PTSD, veterans, all of the folks out there that are really, really having some great benefits with using psilocybin as a remedy, a plant-based remedy. So, let's see. Am I forgetting something? Yes. So also we will be doing the Back from Broken Speaker Summit. I'll be speaking at this weekend, the 5th and the 6th. There are free tickets available for that. If you go into the description and hit the backfromBrokenSummit.com, and let me bring this up here. Sorry. Where are we at here? BackfromBrokenSummit.com. Go to that link right there, and that'll take you to be able to register for this event. And like I said, it is free. There's 250 tickets available. Check it out. I'm working the back end of this as well, and there are some great speakers, man. I'm telling you, I am in the company of some really, really talented folks that are bringing their stories to you for sure. So you don't want to miss this. If you are watching on YouTube, do me a favor and thumbs the video up, subscribe, all the stuff that you need to do. If you are watching on Facebook, do me a favor and share and like the video and everything else that goes with it. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this type of stuff because I'm really, really, really excited to get into this interview. I've been trying to get a hold of or schedule this for a while. James is a really, really busy guy, especially on the advocate front of what's going on in our area currently with Senate Bill 519. So after these messages, we will be right with you, and we're going to come directly into there after the intro. So see you in a minute.
Sean Dustin spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. Upon release in 2006, he had nothing but the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and legal paperwork. In 2010, he kicked a long-time methamphetamine habit and started the long climb back up the ladder of life. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. If you want transparency and authenticity, you're in the right place. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and this is Sean Dustin.
All right, what's up, James?
Wow, what an intro, Sean. You got me fired up, ready to talk about some stuff. Wow, cool, man.
All right, we got a little bit of an echo there. Do you got your you don't have your Clubhouse on, do you?
Yeah,
nope.
That's what it is. Hold on, turn that down. Is that working better?
Yeah, yeah, it's a little bit better.
Well, let me pull this guy away. He's probably pulling feedback on us.
So like I said, for those of you out there who don't know who James is the owner of the Haight Street Shroom shop in San Francisco. He is a mycology educator as well as a decriminalization advocate for psychedelics and basically plant-based medicines, I think in general, but mushrooms specifically. And I really, really, really am interested in learning more about this because I have used these plant-based medicines myself to try to help heal my own issues and trying to work through things. So James, man, glad to have you here. Glad we can finally make it. I know you have had a busy weekend from the Mushroom Festival up in McLeod, which is in Shasta.
Yeah, up in Shasta. It was a fun. It's what we call the end of the mushroom season here in Northern California, which is it basically extends from October all the way until about now, when the snow melt starts kind of coming down and keeping things moist up on higher elevations. And so we're able to go find some fun mushrooms even all the way up until, Memorial Day, like this weekend here in Northern California. It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, I saw some great pictures that you took of some of the mushrooms that you guys found. And you found a bunch of morels right in the backyard, right?
That's right. My good friend that invited me up that wanted to take me around a little bit and show me some of his spots. We were very lucky when we arrived that he was like, hey, look at this, because his lawn had been watered by his family, and basically morels were popping up in the lawn. So it was quite a treat to start the foray, the foraging, just kind of sitting in the lawn and find a bunch of really choice morels to cook up. We cooked them up and put them on some venison burgers. We made a little cream sauce. It was choice. Yeah, it's good.
Jealous.
I got lucky, man. I have good friends. That's the key to mushroom foraging, is having good friends around you.
Well, just in the space in general, when you are thinking about, even in the cannabis space, the psychedelic space, everybody comes at things from love, right? And we don't see that a whole lot. I mean, we're seeing it more today, but in the past we haven't seen that a whole lot. And I think that's one of the really great things about that community, is that, everybody's so open and so giving and so willing to help. As long as you're, willing to do the same thing, you're going to get that back.
Yeah. That's really funny you say that, because today I was actually putting a post on Instagram because I came up to a harvest of some amazing lion's mane mushrooms from my grow space, and I really didn't expect it, but I knew that they were coming close. And that right there is kind of the key to cultivation, to growing, to building your own personal recipe for yourself, is having that good faith and that good energy into whatever it is that you're putting your efforts into, so that whatever comes back to you gives you that same level of response. And mushrooms are definitely one of those particular species of entity, because mushrooms are their own species and own genus of plant, if we're going to call them a plant, because they're not. Fungi and mold are their own space. But I like to say the word plant because people understand plants and medicine more from that standpoint. And now we're coming into this amazing space where people are realizing that fungi and mold and different intermediary spaces are actually a really great thing to add into the recipe for personal health and development.
Yeah, and every variety, from what I'm reading, has a different function of health wise, what it helps you with. Like lion's mane is like for cognitive function and helps with the ability of that. And every single one of them has something different that it helps. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the fun part about mushrooms in general, because what I do here in the shop is really focused mainly on educating people and trying to help get them into the framework to gain knowledge, because we all have we've all been conditioned by society to believe that there's certain modalities to healing or personal growth or spiritual growth, whatever the terminology that you want to use to kind of help define personal development. Right. And a lot of us will fall into one fad or another. The thing that's really common is that I find that there's kind of three different areas that we as a society are always trying to work on. Right. We're trying to work on our mind, right, to learn more. We're trying to work on our bodies to stay healthy. And then we're also trying to work on our spirit. And that combination of those three houses or those three areas really help dull it down or dumb it down to a point where people can look at what am I achieving from this activity? When I work out, what am I achieving? Am I feeding my body? Am I feeding my spirit? Because the thing you'll find is with mushrooms, with health consciousness, is that you're going to cross those three different categories almost always, two indefinitely, and sometimes three. So when I look at mushrooms, I'm trying to define what's the health benefits that I'm trying to personally achieve. Am I trying to work on my body? Am I trying to work on my mind? Am I trying to work on my spirit? And when I can ask those questions to myself, the context for the healing that exists is a lot better than any other approach that I happen to be a part of when I go on these journeys, or when I try and help people build up their own personal recipe.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great. I'm really interested in learning at some point how to grow my own mushrooms and get involved in on all the stuff that you're doing, for myself. For my own health and my own well-being, and making those, because I guess you had the Stamets, the Paul Stamets, who's an old school mushroom guy. He has a stack that he recommends. He also said something that was really, really interesting to me on an interview that I saw of his, that was talked about how hearing and sight through using some of these mushrooms daily has improved.
Yeah, so Paul is an amazing person in this space, because the work and the research and the time that he put in to creating a framework for all of us that are cultivators, that are all the individuals looking for medicinal or personal development. He did a really great job of creating that foundation to help people like myself actually feel like this is something that we can be involved with. Back in 2015, 2016, my wife was diagnosed with stage 2B breast cancer, which was the exact same diagnosis as Paul Stamets' mother, which he talks about in his TED Med talk. It was from 2012, and they used turkey tail mushrooms as a part of their supplementation and their regimen to help Paul's mother heal. And then in that TED Med talk, he brings her up to stage and shows that she was able to overcome this high-level stage 4B breast cancer at while she was over 80. And this in of itself shows the power of mushrooms and medicine and natural medicine in general, not just predisposing the idea that like taking turkey tail mushrooms, the mushroom that helped my wife and helped Paul's mother, is the only mushroom. There's so many other mushrooms and so many other plants and herbs in our world that it's really important to kind of start defining where the alchemy of the individual really comes into play, because that alchemy is really what we all need to do, because we're all balanced or imbalanced in different ways. So using that kind of different protocols and different herbal and natural technologies that have existed for thousands of years and incorporating those back into our lives and trying to be conscious. That's the key, is being conscious of how those things feel and whether or not they actually have personal benefit. And if they don't have personal benefit to you, it's okay. That doesn't mean you failed. Pulling back into the reality of what we can create is really, really important. So always work on your own recipe. Know that a good chef always takes a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and they taste it. And that taste, that mental consciousness of trying to build the right recipe that is beautiful, is what the power of mushrooms, of natural medicine, of entheogens, and things that all kind of incorporate into the world.
Hey, be quiet. Yeah, that's awesome, man. When you can use natural plant-based medicines to heal yourself, and diet too, and not everybody, there's no one size fits all in a person, because like you said, our chemistry is different, our makeup's different. What works for you may not work for me. So it's really about finding your balance. And a lot of Western medicine, pharmaceuticals, they're all derived from plants too. They just throw their bonding agents in there and whatever else they need to do to be able to patent it, because you're not allowed to patent anything from nature, right?
That's right. That's right. So you're bringing about a huge thing that's going to be emerging in this new market, this new industry revolving around personal healing and different types of plant medicines. And what it really comes down to is that nature is not patentable, but derivatives are. And so there's a lot of companies in the capitalist mindset in the capitalist markets that drive our nation and our industry, that are trying to place themselves into a position to gain more financial value than other people. And that's a really tough sell. That's a really tough one right now, especially as a guy that wants to teach people to grow at home and to be more conscious of what you're consuming, and not rely on the big pharma or the big ag or anybody to tell you what you should or you shouldn't do when you're consuming things. Don't trust everybody. Go out and find your own answers. And when you find your answers and you believe in those answers, that's the true direction towards healing and towards health and towards benefit, is creating a recipe that works for you. And my recipe, my personal recipe, it's not the best recipe, but it works for me and I like it. And maybe you'll take a taste of that soup, and that soup will be something that will help you and make you feel better. But maybe you want to add a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. And that's the thing that I want my shop, I want what I'm doing here to be really consciously minded towards, is to help people build that recipe and be a resource for people that allows them to know that it's okay to define what they personally want. And if they're healing, then share that they're healing, and it's okay that methodology or that thing works for them. Because when we look at Western medicine and we look at Western society, the things that lead to healing are based on a physical response. And I think all of us out there that have gone through real deep trauma or have had things happen to them know that it's not just take a pill and then all of a sudden you're solved. It's a whole bunch of work beyond that physical medicine that you consume.
Yeah, I mean it's everything encapsulated, from your mental health to not being stressed to having toxic people in your life, and if you do, removing any kind of toxicity within your life, whether it's people, whether it's foods, whether it's diet, anything that's toxic to you always will play a part in the detriment to you. And I saw this meme the other day. And actually, it wasn't really a meme. It was a sticky note, and it said, what was it? It said, "Make time for your wellness, or you'll be forced to make time for your illness." Yeah.
And that's the truth. That is a beautiful analogy and statement, because when to go into personal things revolving around the experience that I had when my partner was going through cancer, we recognized that in the science of things, she was not somebody that was predisposed for cancer to happen. However, where we were at that point in our lives, we were exposed to energy and feelings that may have created more of an opportunity for things like that. And that's because we weren't balanced. Our recipe didn't have all the right ingredients at that time. And because of the nature of working in Silicon Valley and the high level of metrics and numbers that you're trying to meet, what we came to the realization is that we were being pressed so hard individually to represent and to create more outside of what we could do in the space because of these numbers. It actually pulled us back, and it deterred us from actually being healthy and being good. And we sit here in Silicon Valley and here in the Bay Area trying to drive this idea of work-life balance. However, the numbers, I'm doing air quotes here, friends on Clubhouse, the numbers were what were really driving what we should and shouldn't be doing with our time. But we were being told to create work-life balance. And when that all failed, because the amount of drive that we were being pressed on as people that were moving up in as people to become management and things like that in these spaces, we realized that we were driving for the wrong things, and the thing that we were being told to drive for was just money, and money as it's important to sustaining and creating space. But this idea of that we were going to be Silicon Valley entrepreneurs and make millions and millions of dollars because we were smart and we did all the right things and worked in the right companies was not a real ideal. It wasn't something that actually created the wealth that we were looking for. And it was more about how we took our recipe, our personal health, and our personal experience and applied that in a way that was much more conscious than just going towards what we were being told we should be going to.
No, I 100% agree with that, because wealth doesn't necessarily mean financial. Wealth is really way more intricate than that. Wealth is ingrained in spirituality, in connection to your community, in connection to nature, connection to the energy that we are. And in all of these things is what wealth is: family, children, raising your tribe. That's wealth. I mean, yeah, we need money to survive, but we don't need as much money as we think we do. Speaking of Silicon Valley, I worked there for a long time as a construction worker, and doing commercial construction. I've built Zynga. When it went up in San Francisco, a lot of the other ones down in South Bay. And the one thing that I noticed with all of them, starting with Zynga, was they are creating a space to keep their workers there. Whether it's food, whether it's snacks, whether it's, game rooms, cots or quiet rooms where they can go take a nap. Like, all of these things that they were building for their employees was to keep them at work.
Yep.
So that work-life balance that everybody's like, how do you? No, it doesn't make any sense.
Sean, I'm surprised as somebody that didn't actually work in that space that you actually get it. They wanted me working from 6 a.m. till 9 p.m. every single day. And as I rose up the management chain, and I'm not saying my companies and the places that I worked were bad. It wasn't the individual's fault that I was working with. It was the expectation of the drive towards those numbers. And as I sat there and I kept learning and building and growing, I realized that those numbers really didn't mean anything into what I was actually doing, because if I wasn't helping and being of service to the people that were my clients or my customers or consumers, however you want to use the term, I realized that it was a disservice to them, because basically what I was giving to them was not at the quality that I personally held myself to. So it's like I kept pushing and letting go, and not because of my abilities or inabilities, but because of the way that I was conditioned to believe that the drive to be successful was more about how you cut costs, more about how you figure out to get things done, rather than focusing on what you're actually doing, right? And that's why this beauty of me transitioning into the space of like cultivating mushrooms. You can't grow mushrooms unless you're patient. You can't grow mushrooms if you don't have the right process in place, and you can't grow mushrooms if you don't have the right mindset to do it. And once I stepped away from the Silicon Valley stuff and started just doing something simple, which simple is a term that is interpreted by the individual, but to me, growing mushrooms is simple in comparison to managing, $700 million of revenue and trying to make sure that logistically everything lines up so that I can deliver a end result to a select few of 20 people that are on a board of directors that are actually driving the direction of the company because they want to get more money, not because they want to make good products, not because they want to create advancement. They just want more. And so this idea of more, really I had a hard time with it, and because I was being driven as I was watching my wife go through cancer, as I was raising my barely 1-year-old at the time, I realized that the things they were asking me to do and the pressures they were giving me had no bearing on whether or not my wife survived or not. They had no bearing on whether or not my son was going to be raised to be a good individual. And the amount of effort and time that I was being asked to undertake did not allow me personally to grow mentally, spiritually, and physically. And I needed all three of those pieces. And Silicon Valley wasn't offering that to me, even though they had put the front up to exactly as you described, to make me feel like there was a balance there, and there wasn't.
Oh yeah, it was what do they call that? It was indirect coercion. That's really what it is, and it's it's a manipulation, and when you come to they're indirectly manipulating you to you come to terms with it on your own to think that this is a great thing. So when you're thinking that, oh, you come in and you see all of this food that you get and all of these amenities and all of these perks at these places. I mean, geez, somebody who was building these places, I was going, God, I wish I worked here. You know, it gives this illusion. And when you come to it's in your mind that you're, oh, okay, yes, I'll do this. You know, it's really tricky.
I'll give you a great example of what wealth means in these capitalist societal things. And again, I want to tell all my friends, anybody that's here that works in the Bay Area, you work for a software company, you work in small teams, I'm so happy that you guys are all kind of creating products that you believe in. The thing that I was having a hard time with was that I was being led as I was approaching this whole parental development space of my life, was that I was being told I wasn't doing enough. When in fact, when you look at the grand scheme of all the different things I was undertaking as this developing person, right? Like I was a first and foremost a father, a new father, a husband, and an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I was also a high school wrestling coach. I was also, helping support my partner while she was going through this insane change in her life. And then because of that, she got ousted out of Silicon Valley. And we had to ride by the seat of our pants in a way that made us feel comfortable, but at the same time made us feel in control, because humans want to be in control of their situation. And the moment that you feel like you're out of control, that's the moment that it's just straight up shit happens. Mm-hmm. Is when and things start rolling forward, because once the momentum of out of control occurs, then it's hard to keep it from pulling. It's hard to step back, because one thing leads to another, and these things kind of perpetuate and snowball in a way that pull you out of where you need to be in order to actually deal with the situation that's at hand. And so I was very, very lucky that my partner she recognized it. And I love her so much, because when we found out this was going to happen, she was the one that said, we're going to do this and we're going to beat it, because that's what it comes down to. It's like your initiation to work towards healing, towards working towards personal progression, towards building that recipe. There is no right or wrong answer. It's what works for you. And I feel so blessed that my wife and my partner was able to come out of this experience with that growth mentality. And as I watched her grow and tried to be ultra supportive as well as fearful, because I would not be here in this space if I had not entertained or gone through that experience of not knowing for that year past my partner's treatment whether or not she would still be here. So I worked through all the Silicon Valley mindset stuff that we're talking about. She got through her treatment, and then we had to sit back and wait for a year to basically know that the cancer had been in remission, that we were on our path towards moving up, towards going up and growing into what we wanted to be. And that was where my personal experience with therapeutic mushrooms, with psilocybin mushrooms, started kind of reforming itself, because when I was younger, when I was in my teens, I consumed magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms recreationally, like most of us do. And so it's one of these interesting topics that I love to share with people, because there are three spaces that will come about from this new movement. There is the medicinal space, which is really important to a lot of the groups that we've talked about. There's the ceremonial space, which is paying tribute and homage to the ancient technology that has been shared with us from different cultures and different indigenous groups for thousands of years. And then there is that recreational space, because without recreation, without trying to release, without trying to let go and have a good time, we as humans would just all be robots moving around. And so I'm going to say right out there to you and all the listeners and all the viewers that expect all three of these spaces to come up: medicinal, ceremonial, and recreational. And know that there's a space for each person, but we have to have good safety networks in those spaces to make sure that we don't get ourselves hurt or have other people hurt.
Oh, that's a great point. And right now I'm going to take time for anybody that's listening. When this is released on the podcast platforms, nobody's going to be able to see what I have on the screen here. So the Haight Street Shroom Shop website is www.haittshroomshop.com. All the direct links, like I said before, are in the description and will be in the show notes. And also, on the ticker tape that I got going on the bottom there is the www.decrimsf.org. And that's all of the information, I would imagine, about the decriminalization movement that's happening. Now, is that in California, or is that just specific to the county of San Francisco?
That's a great question, Sean. And the beauty of SB 519, right, is a state ballot measure, which is different than a standard ballot measure that goes to the constituency to vote on. So state ballot measures kind of come to the table when basically the state legislature sees the opportunity for emerging law or things that could be fast-tracked through the Senate itself. And so there are certain things that are inherent that the state, because every single time the Senate comes together and starts meeting on laws or doing discussions, it takes money, it takes time. And so basically after Measure 109 and 110 up in Oregon, after what happened over in Denver with their decriminalization of psilocybin, and watching the Decriminalized Nature platform, which started in Oakland, California, where it's decriminalized, has moved down to Santa Cruz, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Washington, D.C., and all these emerging spaces. Basically, the great state of California and my senator, Scott Wiener, has recognized that there is a movement that exists within this decision for new modalities towards healing and towards personal development. And so he submitted this legislation in a way that actually upcoming here on June 4th, there's a great opportunity for entheogenic plant medicines and psychedelic medicines of a certain genre to be completely decriminalized for personal use here in California. And that in of itself is such a huge progressive movement, because while other states have decriminalized things, we all know here in California that our great state is basically the progressive movement for any national level legislation that occurs here in the country. We wouldn't be sitting here talking about cannabis if it hadn't been for Colorado, California, and a couple other states that created the framework for legalization, decriminalization, medicalization. And Prop 215 is a great example that it created a framework for us as consumers, as individuals, to go out and find medicine, alternative methodology for medicine, for personal growth. And I expect that SB 519 is going to pass and going to create the same exact framework that Prop 215 created for cannabis. But the difference is that we are in such a fast track approach towards this decriminalization effort that in 5 years' time from this point of this podcast, I expect there's going to be a huge market in both the medical, ceremonial, and recreational spaces.
That's awesome, man. And how you and I even came to be was we had a conversation. I reached out to you and we talked for about an hour and a half, and I was interested in doing a guided trip, basically, working on some of the things that, my own personal issues that I'm still struggling with in certain areas. And, I've thought that, maybe that would be, a good thing to do. And so, you talked me through that and, was able to give me some information, and, I appreciate that. And, I love it. And we've got quite a few people in the audience over in Clubhouse, and I recognize a lot of the names that we have here from seeing them in your, from the Saturday psychedelic coffee shop to some of the other rooms as well that are on the space. And I really appreciate it. And, everything that you've got going on, and, all of your knowledge that you help, spread out there, and, what you're doing in the community. My question for, when it does get decriminalized, is it going to open up opportunities to have retreat style guided I know it's not called guided trips. What is it called?
Journey work is the term to use, I think, especially from like outside of medical. Mm-hmm. So, that's the beauty of SB 519. That's the beauty of all the amazing work that Carlos Plazola and Larry Norris have put down and helped develop with Decriminalized Nature, the platform that is out there for decriminalization for any place in America. So any of you listeners out there that feel like you're not sure about where you live or what you do, there's a platform that's available for you to open the conversation. And so that's the real big piece of this type of discussion, is how we open up those conversations to people within our community to allow them to gain access. And so as SB 519 opens up and kind of creates this access point, we're going to see a lot of different modalities, a lot of different groups coming into the discussion. And so creating that open-ended framework for people that are medical professionals, ceremonial professionals, and then what I expect will be some level of recreational, because that's the framework that existed for cannabis. So while cannabis is consumed differently than therapeutic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, there is a crossover that exists. And so my hope is that California, with their understanding and with educational efforts like just us sitting here and talking about this, we're going to create that framework for it to open up, to make it accessible to everybody in whatever access point they have available to them.
This is like what I envision. I envision a retreat somewhere, nice in nature, where you have medical professionals, whether they may be mental health counselors that are trained in guiding those journeys, as well as, maybe other health and wellness things that are involved in here, from yoga to, do you want to go have good food, and all of these things in one spot where you can just go and have, take it's almost like a resort. Right? Yeah.
Don't you love living in California, Sean? Because I think we're on the same page. This is what is the future of personal health and wellness. You're not just going to go to yoga retreat. You're not just going to go to a men's or women's group to talk your problems out. You're not just going to go on a beautiful hike in nature. What you're hopefully going to kind of be a part of is you're going to ingest beautiful plant medicines that will help balance your system. Then you're going to take those other things and you're going to incorporate them together. Because right now, for the past, 20 years since I was a kid, we've been told, well, you got a problem, take a pill. You got depression, take Prozac. What? Lexapro, that's the good stuff. Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. We got all these amazing drugs to help kill your pain and numb you up so you don't worry about your problems.
And then we got another pill for all the side effects that you're going to get from these other pills. And so we've got you covered all the way around. 360. Don't worry about it. Just keep taking these pills.
Yeah, and when I look over my shoulders left and right, I always go, wow, because the human body is an amazing machine. and it doesn't need anything in it other than natural substances to fuel it, because it wasn't made to take Oxycontin. It wasn't made to take opium. It wasn't made to take heroin or any of these opioids that we are addicted to as a society. However, the receptors are there, so it does something, and we know it does something good because we created medicines that help people. But because of our nature as humans, we unfortunately take things to excess, whether it's personal health, whether it's money, whether it's spirituality. We go way above and beyond with every gosh darn thing that's in front of us. And so my advice again, and my candid opinion, is really just build that recipe for yourself. Find that balance. There, whatever you hear from somebody else may or may not work for you, and take it with anecdotal experience and bring it back into the recipe. Keep cooking, my friends. Keep cooking.
Yeah, and with that, I full disclosure here, I had I was addicted to meth for 18 years, in and out of prisons and institutions, and in 2010 I cut all that out, but I ended up on a 7-year opiate addiction from an injury playing softball. I was making my way back up, climbing the ladder of life and getting out of all of that, and I ended up injuring myself and went to Kaiser, and it was in my file that I was an addict, and they prescribed them to me anyways. And their way around it is here, just sign a waiver so you're not going to sue us if you get addicted. And sure enough, 7 years later, 10, I started out with Norco 5s and ended my run with Percocet 10s, taking 10 of them a day. And I was able to kick that using edible marijuana, and also being able to take microdosing psilocybin in conjunction with that. So, I mean, I literally, use microdosing now as somebody would probably use Lexapro or Prozac.
Yeah, that is, I love hearing anecdotal responses like this, because that's what's driving this movement. Without you, without me, without everybody that has anything to do with consuming plant medicine, whether it's entheogenic or not. All right, and entheogenic, my friends, has tryptamines that induce psychedelic effects, and psychedelic effects are so broad; they range from so many different levels of understanding that we're literally back down on talking to the same level as, like, what's the difference between taking Valium, Xanax, and like other anti-anxiety medications that exist? What's the difference between taking, Ritalin, Wellbutrin, or Dexedrine? They all work within the same receptor channels. They just all have different levels. And so society and medicine and the westernized medical society has basically created this idea that we need to kind of create this cocktail to basically a chemicalized cocktail in order to balance these things. And the reality is that your system, you personally, and everything around you, you have the ability to control these feelings, these things, without anything other than natural food, with exercise. Like, the human body is made to run. It's made to go and chase. And we all have those feelings deep down inside. And we seem to have duped ourselves into the idea that we don't need to be running around being active, being in community, sharing love and feelings with people that are around us that we care about. And that the idea of wealth is not in the health that we have, but is in what we produce to everybody else. So I'm telling you right now, friends, if you're more healthy, if you share that you're healthy and that you share your smile and your love with everybody else around you, well, you're going to have a greater impact than whatever money you have in your pocket.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I love that you said that, and I love what you said. So we're gonna talk here a little bit about. We're gonna go to the Clubhouse room. So if you guys are down there in Clubhouse, do me a favor. If you want to catch more of these, because all of my broadcasts from now on will be piped into Clubhouse. So the best way to be able to do that is to hit that green house up there for the club, join the club, and anytime that I go live and have a room that's with a guest like James here, you will be notified. And this is, I just started doing this, so I mean, this is one of those things I can talk about, throwing darts and seeing what sticks, right? And so, yeah. And if anybody has a question, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll bring you up to the stage, and you can ask your question, because you will be able to communicate with James, I believe, here through this little thing I got going. So if you want to do that, feel free to do it, and I'll bring you up.
And just to make it even more live and beautiful, I just want to acknowledge all the amazing people that are hanging out with us on Clubhouse right now. Miss Denise, Miss Dr. Regina, Gilia, Ellen, Reese, Sarah, Manuel, David, Patrick, Robert, Stuart, and Northbound. You guys are awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us, listening along. Sean is doing an amazing job crossing boundaries and borders with these types of discussions, which is what is the importance and the magic that exists with spaces like Clubhouse and working on these multi-platform type of discussions. So thank you, brother. I appreciate this opportunity. So ask away, man. Raise your hands.
And to catch the video of these, because this does stream out to 6 different platforms as well, live streaming platforms. You can catch it on my Facebook profile. You can catch it on Twitter. Twitter Live is you can get it there. You can get it on my YouTube channel, as well as Facebook groups. It's piped to a few different things, but the main 3 are those. And you can catch this replay if you want, or you can listen to it however you want to do it, man. It's just a matter of seeing what's working. There's a lot of different content out there. There's a lot of different creators out there right now, and so trying to figure out ways around the algorithms, because some of the conversations that we have, they don't like. And they, some of the platforms like YouTube, when you're talking about, people's personal stories, because this, started out as a Bottoms and Life Struggles podcast, and how my guests got through it, based on, kind of my life story and what I've went through. And I wanted to hear other people's stories and how they got through it, and to be able to share that, because just like way back in the day when we would get around fires and talk and communicate with each other, that's how we would learn things. That's how we would learn how to get through things. And maybe, let's say little Johnny went and hurt himself, on some sort of bush, or ate something. Well, you'd come back and you'd talk about it, and that's how everybody would figure out, well, don't go near those bushes, because this is what's going to happen. Right? And we've been kind of separated and divided over the years, hundreds of years, that this has been happening. And these spaces are helping us to come back together. And, we're all figuring out that, mainstream media is really not there to help us. And the only way that we're going to combat those voices and those negative types of broadcasts are our own, and creating our own spaces and our own media channels that we combat them with. And I mean, not to say that, some of the, local news isn't good to look at, but I mean, I got to tell you, there've been times when I turn on the news and I would just be like, oh my God, turn it off, man. It's just, when you don't watch it for a while, you see how gaslighting and how traumatizing it can be.
So Sean, my background before I even got involved with any of this stuff, my background was in basically print media and multimedia development. So I graduated from college with a degree in what was called new media publishing, which basically was trying to take content development like what we're doing right now and trying to find the crossovers that exist within the current existing kind of print markets, graphic design markets, and the IT markets that were emerging. And basically what we all learned was that, you had to do this. You had to throw darts. You had to be a part of every single piece, even though it was really difficult. And as I sit here and I watch the development of social media, as I watch the development of tech and all these new apps and all these new things, it's that exact crossover of how we use these things effectively to actually get our message across without being burned out because somebody thinks in their conservative or more pragmatic mindset that these particular topics should or shouldn't be talked about. The reality is you're doing the amazing work of kind of pulling multiple things together and knowing that by us sitting here and having this discussion on a cross-platform content development standpoint, it will pull us all together. Even if I only have, or you have 5 from one platform, 10 from another, and 20 from another, when we start crossing all these different places, we as a community will grow. And that community development and that community response is what we as a nation need. And it's really kind of interesting. And I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of giggling about it a lot, that psychedelics seem to be the thing that's pulling us all together right now. I can't believe it.
Right. I mean, not only, I mean, because you talk about psychedelics, and there's a whole wide variety of psychedelics out there, from ayahuasca to ibogaine to, and ibogane's doing some amazing things with folks that are, been hooked.
Heavy addiction.
Yeah. And, what else is there? MDMA. I've had an experience with MDMA that changed my life and my outlook the first time I ever did it. I was, and I'll let you guys I'll let you in on this little story here. So the first time I ever did it, I went to a rave. It was in Sacramento, California, and it was at a bar called Bojangles. And
wait. Let's stop there and hold on that level of misappropriation. Because I'll call it out where it is, Sean. Look at me, man. I'm an entitled white dude that has a shop in San Francisco that isn't even open. And it's not because I'm entitled from the standpoint like I got more money or more this and that. But the reality is that framework existed and put me in a spot to be able to sit here and talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's my job to make sure that that everybody around us has a platform to be able to have this discussion. So by you crossing all these different fields and throwing lawn darts, hoping one of them is going to stick in the circle, this is why this is so exciting to me. I appreciate you and appreciate this opportunity so much, my friend.
Well, thank you, brother. And what I was going to say is that this I didn't realize that this was a gay bar, and up to that point, I was really homophobic, right? And so I was probably about 19 or 20. And I took this capsule of black licorice. I think we got it from the city. And, and I took it about 30 minutes before I walked in there. I walked in there and I started realizing, I'm like, well, where are we at? Hold on a second. This looks like something that I don't like, right? Well, all of a sudden I started, it started kicking in. And what happened after that was I just felt love running through my veins and through my soul and through my body. And I stopped looking at these folks that were there as gay people and started looking at them as people.
Yeah.
And
love.
I even had a guy come and hit on me. And I was like, well, no, I mean, I'm flattered that you feel that way, but I'm cool,
right? Because it feels good when somebody gives you that attention, and that's what human society is pushing us towards: is more and more and more attention. Look at me.
Yeah, right. And so the huge change was, and they always talk about the first time you ever do ecstasy or one of these things, you're going to have something profound change in your life, and that was it. From that point on, I was no longer homophobic. I actually liked hanging out with gay folks because they threw a hell of a party.
I am sexually oriented as queer, but my personal preference towards physical attraction is towards women, because I recognize that that everybody has beauty in them, whether your sexual orientation is male, female, or in between. Everybody has beauty, and it's about how you take that energy and you exude it out to the universe and to everybody around you. So like once I realized that, especially as a young man, especially as a young heterosexual man that was like raised in this very hetero, like kind of aggressive nature, like toxic masculinity. I'm a high school wrestling coach. I can't even tell you the stories of the things that I went through when I was the age of 10 all the way up until 23, when I finally stood up for myself and told these guys to not be like that, because we had more work to do and more training to do than what was just going on in and outside of the mat room. I couldn't deal with it. And that's because these guys weren't doing anything wrong or right. It's just we had all been conditioned to believe that these certain actions or discussions towards each other were the right approach. And I kind of pushed myself to say, like, when you look at me from afar, I am the representation. I would like to think that visually I'm a representation of what masculinity is in America at this point in time. But when you sit back and you have a conversation with me, I'm going to make you dance to cabaret like you wouldn't believe. And we're all going to enjoy RuPaul because she is the queen that she deserves to be, that has taught us all how to let the fuck go of sexuality and what the constructs of society have developed within us through religion, through social interactions, through what the difference between male, female, and in between is. And let's just be completely blunt. We all know that societies in ancient times had a way better understanding of this crossover than we do right now. It's part of our problem.
Oh yeah, for sure. I totally agree with you. I mean, you look back into the Roman days and, all the stuff that, they used to do back then. Everything was pretty fluid,
It moved like the waters of the ocean. You go up, you go down. But the thing is, all boats rise with the tide. Oh, yeah. So everybody's on the same plane, then we will always rise together.
Yep, I say that all the time, man. The rising tide raises all ships. It's get out of that feast or famine mindset and start living in that abundant mindset. You start making things happen and helping people around you, then you will start getting the benefits of that. And it may not be directly from the person that you're helping, but I guarantee you down the road, maybe 2-3 months, and somebody completely different is going to return that favor to you in some way, shape, or form.
100. Easy peasy.
And so I think this is a great point to end this on. This is a great conversation. We're at about 58 minutes here. Why don't you go ahead and plug everything that you want to, James, and say any last words or burning desires that we didn't talk about or cover?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, we didn't even talk about my experience of what really brought me to drive so hard to bring myself back up. So I think, Sean, we have to have another discussion where I talk about a couple of the near-death experiences that I had that really drove me to believe that this is the type of work that I want to do. And then when it comes down to it, my friends, is if you're interested in taking your own personal health into your life, learning how to grow mushrooms might be a piece of that. And if you're not growing mushrooms, just consuming mushrooms could be a huge piece of that. And my hope is that by sitting here and listening to Sean and I talk for, this hour long and kind of go around across all these things, is that you build the personal confidence to go out and take control of your own life, your own personal recipe, and share the love and opportunity that is around you right now, because we've all been stuck inside for the past year, and now it's time to take control, because we're all coming back around, and I can't wait to share with you. I can't wait to find opportunities to support everybody that may listen to this, and let's all hang out and create community, because that's the important aspect of what healing is about, is having people around you that will listen to you, that will love you, and will support you.
I love that. And yeah, that is a great opportunity to connect again. And we did skip right over that, didn't we?
Yeah. And you know, what are the things? I'm on Clubhouse. Okay. So if you want to hear this beautiful baritone some more, come on Clubhouse and listen to me talk, because I'll talk all day there. I'm on Instagram. Instagram's a great platform to reach out to me and tell me your story. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. If you're in the Bay Area and you have a group, or you personally are interested in creating a space for you to grow mushrooms for yourself or for your personal community, then reach out. I'm here. I'm at the HaightStreetShroomShop.com, which is www.HaightStShroom, SHROOM shop.com. You can email me at james@HaightStreetShroomShop.com. You can also reach out through all the other social media platforms to try and connect with whatever works best for you. And I will get back to you as soon as I can. And let's grow together, family. Let's grow together.
That's awesome. And yeah, we will connect again and do a part 2. And I want to take you up on your offer on the next one of going and doing it live from your shop.
Yes. Come to the Haight Street Shroom Shop Reading Nook, which is currently being transitioned into the podcast nook, because I know, my friends, that there are a lot of amazing individuals, whether historically or whether currently here in the Bay Area, in the psychedelic community, that have so much to share with us. And I have neighbors 2 blocks from me that are on the board of MAPS. I have people that I have met on Hippie Hill that were there when the be-in actually occurred. So there is something that hides here. We are Atlantis. We are here to share the knowledge. San Francisco was a special place that lit the torch over 50 years ago to bring the energy back together. And while this place looks like a crazy capitalist, overly expensive place, there's magic here, my friends. There's magic here. And I want you all to look at my little shop as a beacon, as a lighthouse, to bring you all back to where it all started, so we can figure this thing out again together.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So I'm going to pull you out and hang out just for a second. Once the outro is done, I want to ask you a couple of questions down in the green room. And yeah, thanks again. And everybody, I hope that you enjoyed the show as much as I did, and the information that we received from James and everything that we had talked about. So things that are going on next week, I'm not sure. I've got 2 lined up for next Monday. Let's see. I think it's at 1 at 5 and 1 at 6 p.m. And those are going to be really good. So keep a lookout for that. They will be scheduled in the clubhouse room as well. Yeah. And so if, you enjoyed your weekend, I hope everybody did. I took mine a little slow, trying to get back to being used to going to work. But, yeah, thank you again for being here. I appreciate all of you. And as I sign off, keep it 100. Stay true to yourself. Everything else is just noise.
You've been listening to the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Sean is a single dad, a union blue-collar guy, and he spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. When he was released from prison in 2006, all he had was the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and some paperwork. Since then, he's turned his life around and shares the struggles and successes on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you were moved. To connect to the show, book a guest spot. For merch, Patreon, PayPal, and social media links, go to linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. On Instagram at Nowhere to Go But Up Now. On Twitter at But Up Now. On the YouTube channel at Nowhere to Go But Up Podcast. See you next time.